for our first session tonight, for our first panel, we are going to be talking about the very important intersection of cybersecurity and fraud, the continual protection of data. In 2022, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre received fraud and cybercrime reports totaling a staggering $530 million in victim losses, nearly a 40% increase from the unprecedented $380 million in 2021. Unfortunately, this increase is not because people are reporting more fraud. In fact, only 5 to 10% of all people who are victims of fraud even report it. Tonight, we are going to welcome the incomparable Octavia Howell to moderate a wonderful panel of experts. Can I please welcome you to the stage?
Amazing. You always know when you have amazing women when we rearrange the furniture the first time that we're actually coming in. So thank you for having us. I am Octavia Howell. I am the CISO of Equifax Canada, and I am happy to be here as we're talking about the intersection of cybersecurity and fraud. And I would like my panel, I am not going to introduce my panel because they are amazing, and so I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Octavia. I will tell you, I just want to thank everyone here for having me. I'm from the southern United States. You'll hear it in my accent.
She doesn't want to say what state she's from.
And I feel like I've been welcomed like no other event. So I just want to say thank you for welcoming me here and being a part of this. I'm with Cisco. My name is Pam Lindemoen, and I am a CISO advisor. I have about 28 years of experience in IT. Prior to Cisco, I was the deputy CISO of Anthem, which is now Elevance Health. It's a Fortune 20. I was with them during the time of their nation-state attack on the front lines, one of the ones deposed, and rebuilt the organization after. I do have software development experience and infrastructure as well, but I am so grateful to be here amongst you all.
Amazing. Abby?
I'm Abby Daniell, and I'm also from the U.S., but my husband's from Toronto, so it's wonderful to be here, be able to see family as well. I'm with Amazon Web Services. I've been with the company for 7 years, and I lead a team that supports education for cybersecurity for the public sector. We also do a lot of work with the commercial sector as well. And I have somebody on my team who's with me this evening who's based here in Canada. And so it's a pleasure to be here. I was at the first one in 2020, shortly before the pandemic, and it's nice to be back this year as well.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Anne Marie Kelly, and I am with Mastercard. I'm a vice president of their identity solutions globally, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here tonight. You'll hear me talk a lot about, 25 plus years in financial crimes, specifically in fraud, identity management. So I'm not the person that sits behind the computer. In fact, somebody here tonight had to show me how to bring up my scanning code on my LinkedIn. So I'm not your technical girl up here. But I am the one that, again, like I said, 25 plus years of financial crime experience, all things identity related and identity fraud related. So thank you so much for having me on this panel with these wonderful, esteemed women.
Awesome.
Hello,
Nisha?
everyone. Nisha Shankar. I'm a partner with PwC in the Cyber, Privacy, and Financial Crimes practice. The intersection of cyber and fraud is a topic that I'm very, very passionate about, and that is what I do. I help organizations develop future-proof their organization's operating model from a fraud as well as cybersecurity perspective. I'm also very passionate about women in leadership and women in technology, and what a panel. I'm so excited to be here with these lovely, esteemed ladies, and looking forward to the panel.
Awesome. So now that you know who we are, we wanted to make sure that we were kind of bringing you all into what we do on our daily basis, right? So as we're actually talking about, I work at Equifax, and so we're talking about data protection on a normal basis, and we always talk about trying to prevent a breach, right? Trying to actually be proactive and making sure that we don't have a security incident. But what happens when there's, threat actors and fraud actors that's out there trying to take over individuals' identity? And in Canada, I've seen an uptick in fraud behavior. And so I wanted to actually talk about this a little bit. So historically, cybersecurity has really been about protection and really trying to, the leaders that we've had before have really been about really focused on technology. So with, we have Web3, automation, we have all these new technologies that's coming out. So what do you think the next security leaders need to be thinking about as we talk about data protection in the new world? I will start with Abby.
So really, data is the key, right? Data is what the new gold or the new oil, or data is really where it is and where we need to be concerned. And so I think the new leaders, the leaders in the future, need to think about the security tools for data storage, data protection, and how you're classifying your data, who has access to your data, what logs or controls you can use to see what you're doing with your data. And at Amazon Web Services, for us, security is job zero. We have more than 200 products and services, and many of those are security related around data.
Yeah. Anne-Marie, do you have any thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts on this, actually. Thank you for asking. So data protection, so I just finished a 7-month course, cybersecurity, and one of the, yes, thank you.
We
for
have
the
a
LCI
fan.
Emerging Leaders. Some of my colleagues are here from there. One of the things that I learned is cybercrime is the third largest economy behind the US and China. And so, wow, right? And so for data protection, it starts with everybody in every organization. It's not just the CISO's job to ensure that our organizations have the proper knowledge, have the proper protocols, folks understand what their crown jewels are and assets are. Data protection really starts with everybody that walks in within your organization. And we'll talk a little bit about this later, but organizations, the board of directors, the CEO have responsibilities to ensure that everybody in that organization takes security first. So data protection, it's not if, it's when organizations are going to be breached. I hate to say that, but in fact it's true. So I think it starts data protection. Our emerging leaders that are coming into cyber is really important for, again, I think the third time I'm going to say is how important it is for everybody in the organization to have a security posture.
Yeah, I'm going to double back and ask Pam her thoughts. And then Nisha, I want you to ask from a fraud perspective and how we actually marry the two, right? And what that actually means going forward. So Pam, your thoughts?
Sure. I counsel a lot of people throughout the world, and one of the things that I say a lot that I'll say tonight, security people love talking about security. And security is not a security problem, it is a business problem.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I try to instill in executives, if they're not typically getting it, and you can kind of tell when they're not, you have to talk the business language. You have to explain to them the risk of data loss. I'll give you an example. Cisco had an incident last year, a year into the job for me, and make no mistake, when I changed my password inside of 2 weeks, I was a little bit freaked out. I had a little bit of PTSD. But one of the things that we do is we instrument where it matters. So if you think about, we have 250,000 VPN connections a day. We're all across the globe. We protect our customers, our value chain. What we do is incredibly incredibly amazing. But we instrument where it matters. I heard the term crown jewels used. Understanding where your data is and protecting it where it matters is super important. We instrument where it matters. And so for me, when I counsel or advise or I'm educating, it's all about, do you understand where your data is? One of the things that I have a long experience with technology, business continuity is not a new concept, but explaining ransomware and how it impacts business continuity and how it impacts uptime, your ability to make money, that is a conversation you can have with your executive stakeholders that really matter. One of the things that I can say today, I hear people talk, I'm technical, I'm not technical. Octavia and I have become best friends over the past 24 hours. And one of the things I can tell you without a doubt is it doesn't matter if you're the smartest person in the room. If you do not have your business attention and you cannot articulate the risk of their data being lost or stolen or held for ransom, you are not doing your job as a security professional. It is our job to articulate the risks to our customers, and our customers is your business line. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it's paramount to our roles. So how you navigate that, that's where experts like this panel come in to help you articulate what that means.
I couldn't agree more with you, Pam, because at the end of the day, the whole threat that is, or the exposure that we have from a cybersecurity, at the end of the day, all the threat actors are doing is using that data to commit fraud. And imagine having, as the business person, having that conversation with the customer, oh, sorry, your money is being held, or your account is locked because we are still investigating and trying to figure out what the source of the issue is. That's a tough situation, right? So at the end of the day, from a fraud perspective, the number one thing to do over here is the basics. Data hygiene, vulnerability patching, who has access to what, controlling that, using the data creatively, using fraud analytics, different models to really understand if there is connectivity correlation and identify potential sources, flag it early, and get into a prevention mode versus a detection mode. So those are some of the changes that are happening, and also data sharing across the industry. So, demarketing lists, coming to, industry-driven information sharing across organizations, so we can have more of that collaborative approach as well as efficiencies, right, synergies. So those would be some of the key trends that we are seeing from a fraud perspective. And this is how both the worlds intersect with each other.
Yeah.
And can I just add, Octavia, so from my
Absolutely.
team's perspective, we work with the public sector, and we have two esteemed mayors here tonight. And what we're saying applies to the public sector as well, because we're talking about our data, citizen data. And so it's important that the same things that we're talking about for enterprise and for the private sector is also something that we're concerned about with the public sector.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Anne Marie said, and she's kind of quoted what we normally say, it's not if, it's when. And I'm going to actually kind of flip it a little bit. And it's not if, it's when you find out, right? And I think that's a little bit of a difference is, how are we actually protecting the data? So I would kind of curve it. Like, is there, if we actually look at, security leaders, do you think that security leaders today, what we have right now in our current infrastructure, the way that we're modeling in our organization, do you think that we have the effective tools to mitigate data, to actually do data security and fraud mitigation? And where does it lie in the organization, and who is really accountable? Nisha, because you're looking at me with this really big smile, I am going to start with you.
It's essentially, do you have a silver bullet? Is there a one magic solution? And if that was the case, a lot of people around here in this room won't have jobs. It's what helps us with our paychecks, right? So jokes aside, even though we may have tools to mitigate or address the problems that we are aware of now, the world is evolving. The threat actors are evolving. Like ChatGPT, last year no one knew about this particular topic. Generative AI, which has been in a buzzword for the longest amount of time, it hasn't really been in action it has finally become real, right? So as the technology evolves, the threat actors now creatively start using it. So the only way to stay current is to keep investing, know what's going on, think like the hacker, and start doing more. You have to integrate that into your technology roadmap, business roadmap. Otherwise, there is no keeping up. There's only losing money. So that's my perspective.
Yeah, I think I'll just add to that, just because it's like you visually pass the baton to me, to which I will visually accept.
That's what we're just gonna do popcorn, and as we kind of give each other. I made a statement earlier today. I'm not a poker player. I play spades, and so you have to look at each other's face.
Yeah.
And then we popcorn
pass
it out.
the baton.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's no silver bullet, right? And so I would absolutely agree. I think, again, it comes down to collaboration within each of the individual organizations that we all work for. And so when I think of cybersecurity, I was speaking again to someone earlier today where cybersecurity isn't just about the person that's sitting behind the computer, right? As consumers, we all execute cybersecurity every single day, every single minute, every time we're on our devices, every time we change a password, every time we look at our PIN, we are executing some type of cybersecurity for us personally. And so translate that into the business, again, it gets back to all levels of the organization. And so what are the tools, or what's that silver bullet? It's understanding, again, where our data sits. And it doesn't matter if you're on the comms team that is preparing for that incident to communicate out to the public or shareholders or the board of directors or the CEO or CISO. It matters for everybody within the organization. And so again, where your data resides and what are your crown jewels are really the first part of identifying where that silver bullet can be shot and into protecting each of your respective organizations.
Pam, I feel like you want to say something.
So, when you've data loss prevention is something that's near and dear to my heart. And when you've deployed technology, but the technology's deployed, but there's nothing being done about it, it's worthless. And so one of the things that I talk about a lot is if you look at, the frameworks, right? NIST, pick one that you're measuring yourself against. Those frameworks talk about people, process, and technology. And if you look at it, if you add up, I'm a metrics girl, so if you add up how much each of those divisions contribute to the control stack, technology is 50%. And I work for a software company, okay, I get it, but 50%. People and process, 100%. And so if you think about that, and if you think about deployment of a data loss prevention tool, you have to have the business stakeholders engaged in that conversation, because if you don't, you're going to interrupt business. You're going to stop work. And so that stakeholder conversation, to me, is the most important asset you have. And that relationship drives your security posture, in my opinion. If you do not have those relationships, you can start turning things on and stopping business, and you will be halted day one. And for me, it's all about your people and your process, the governance around that. What are you doing with the information that's presented to you? And are you making change inside of your organization? And that's really the sweet spot of cybersecurity, in my opinion, and understanding when to pivot and how quickly. A lot of people measure themselves against their peers. I mean, we did, right? Peers, and then the financial industry. And I would argue you really have to start looking at different North Stars, like technology companies. And I actually advise people, this is free advice, hold out a bit of your budget for those pivot points, because you're going to need it on a rainy day. And that umbrella is going to come in really handy when you need it. So, and look at your tech stack. Who's your thought leadership? Who are you doing business with a lot? And what are they offering you? And how are they offering it? What are they thinking about? And what should you be thinking about long term and preparing yourself for? Because the tech companies of the world have something to say, and they're thinking about those pivot points in a way in which private and public sector just don't have the ability to do, and we know that, right? That's why I exist, right? And listening to them is super important.
Yeah.
I was going to add to that, I think continual education is key at all levels, internal and external, and leadership buy-in is absolutely key at all levels. It's absolutely vital to be able to get something done, and one of the things that I and my team does a lot of is how to change the culture of an organization to allow for digital transformation, which then enables you to be better prepared, which preparedness is the key. You want to be as prepared as possible for a cyber incident, whether it's fraud, ransomware, or another type of attack.
So are we really prepared for fraud? Do you really think that we are? We do tabletops, we do cybersecurity exercises, but do you think that we're really prepared when there's a fraud actor out there? Yes.
It's about developing that muscle memory, right? There's no perfect scenario because you might try to come up with like a million scenarios and have playbooks for those million scenarios, but there's always that one creative threat actor out there that might come up with their very own unique scenario. So it's important to be prepared. It's important to try out a variety of different scenarios so that you have enough muscle memory. The organization knows, okay, this situation, which is completely out of the playbook, is similar to this other situation that I have in my playbook, and I know how to execute on it. But there is no, preparation is key. There is no other way out of it.
Yeah. So that's interesting because, there's a notion that no one really prepares to be a cyber criminal or a fraud criminal, right? But yet, we have certifications, training, programs, we have organizations that pay, right, so that we can actually get up to speed. If no one really trains to be a cyber criminal, then what do we need to do to make sure that we are protecting ourselves, protecting our data, protecting our companies, right? And what do we need to do to better prepare to make sure that we're through some of these attacks? I'm going to start with Pam, and I'm going to start with Pam because, Abby, I think I know you have an answer.
We talked about this earlier. My mom was attacked, and she handed somebody money. This is my business. I am her tech support, and she did not lean on me. And so I think there's a psychological part of us that will never be prepared. Like, you don't know how embarrassing it can be to be, taken for granted. Mm-hmm. I think that someone said it earlier, you have to have the basics in place. There are specific controls that I recommend always. And I can tell you, for me, you got to have that umbrella. You got to have people around you, those thought leaders that will help you in a crisis situation. I know we did. Speaking from experience, you lean into everything you have at your fingertips to get you through. And I will tell you, you don't know what you don't know until you're going through it and you live through it. So I think you actually prepare with the tabletops, you do your best, but really having a security-aware, conscious organization and control stack and being able to lean into the business side is what I recommend.
Yeah. I'll go to Anne-Marie, then Nisha, then Abby.
So, what do we do? I'm sure that we're all presented with this question often. How did you get here? What did you do? What is your education? Who's in your network? And the advice that I always offer to new learners in cyber, whether this is your third career or first career or something in between, is networking, right? So events like this, I started off my career very young in fraud, financial crimes, not perpetrating it, but stopping it. And I was...
I'm glad you made that clear.
Yeah, thank you. Never assume. I always say to my kids, never assume. But I started my career very early, being the only female sitting at a table of 32 men, esteemed men, who were in that field already. And I wasn't looking to get into anything cyber. I have a communications degree with an English minor, and so I wanted to be on, a television show doing the weather or something. But all kidding aside, I bring that up because networking like this is number absolute one. And, I would say also keep your brand current, right? So LinkedIn is a great opportunity to meet people and to dive into areas that, you can be vulnerable in. I would also say within your own organizations, mentorship is key. I've had many mentors of different disciplines throughout my career. I've been a mentor to a number of different people throughout my career. And it is through these relationships that get me introduced to a discipline that interests me. And so again, I talk about cyber. My discipline is really fraud prevention, really financial crimes. But cyber, we're all in it, as I mentioned earlier. So networking like this, also, I'll do a plug for Toronto Metropolitan University with their Emerging Leaders initiative as well. Yes, everyone? That is a great opportunity as well to dip your toes in cyber and see whether or not it's something that interests you. I would also say, again, I want to take up all the time, but cyber just isn't about that person sitting behind a computer, right? As we've all said, there are many different areas, I would say all areas of an organization that hit and influence cyber. And so finding your niche and finding your passion, is really about, I think, first networking. Education is always helpful, of course, but it is getting with people that are in this room and on LinkedIn and others to start carving out that path where you're starting to see your niche, your favorites, I guess, if you will. So,
well, I couldn't agree more. If you see over the last 15 years, the role of a security leader has massively changed.
Absolutely.
From being part of just the IT world to now being part of the C-suite, driving those conversations with the board, with the business, with the risk, with the external regulators. So it requires a diverse skill set, not just the technical knowledge. And this is where diversity in every shape and form matters, including diversity of experiences, diversity of thought. So this is where someone with a communications background, risk background, governance background, technical background, there is room for all of us. And it's all about how you put the pieces together and paint a nice picture. So this is where we need to bring it all together, and there's tremendous opportunity for anyone who is interested and also investing their time towards their goals.
Absolutely.
I would add, I'm not, unlike my esteemed panelists, a 20-plus year veteran of IT or cybersecurity. I've been at Amazon Web Services for 7, and prior to that, I had a different career. So I would say that cybersecurity, we know, is a field that will always have opportunities for employment. In fact, right now in Canada, according to a couple of studies that I read recently, there's a huge gap of more than 25,000 plus roles that are not filled. So I would encourage anyone who's interested in exploring, it doesn't matter what you've done for your previous part of your career, taking advantage of opportunities like AWS Restart, and Yes is here in the audience tonight. They're one of our collaborating organizations for Restart, which is an upskilling program on cloud for mid-career professionals, and other opportunities like that, cloud certifications and cybersecurity certifications and micro-credentials, which are available in many cases from not only Amazon Web Services, but other cloud providers for free. And so explore. And I certainly agree that networking is, and these types of events are super important for that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for that. So in my role at Equifax, I have all of you all's data. With that, though, I actually see I actually see the amount of fraud that actually comes through on a regular basis, because when their identity is stolen, or they think that they have a fraudulent transaction on their credit report, they report it to us, right? And that's only the ones that's actually reported. And so we see these stats, and it seems really daunting. And then you kind of butt it up against the amount of attackers that's actually trying to get into our space on a daily basis, right? And so if you look at all of the numbers, it seems like we're getting beat up on a regular basis. It seems like there's always someone out there that's trying to commit some type of crime. And here we are on the front lines trying to prevent that from happening. In February of this year, Gartner actually did a study on cybersecurity leaders. And what they said was that in 2025, that we were actually like half, 50%, which is huge. 50% of cyber leaders are going to leave the industry altogether. And that's because of the amount of stress that this job and this role takes. And so, as Anne-Marie said, we come to these events, we try to get motivated, we try to lean on each other. What do you all think, and this is the last question, I want you to give some nuggets, right? What do you all think we can do to ensure that we are supporting, nurturing, and upholding our peers as we're in this fight together? So, Pam, I'm going to start with you.
I did an earlier talk about this, Octavia, and I will say you need friends. You need to make friends before the crisis hits. And I would say find a mentor, a champion, and a coach, whether it's somebody you employ or someone that you know that can help guide you. I provide that service in my role at Cisco, and complimentary to all of our customers, which I'm not really sure I should say that out loud in front of a live audience like this, because
what's done is done. It's in the wind now.
Yeah, but find those people that can help you through a crisis, and get involved, whether it's volunteering. I heard mentoring, champions are super important, but I believe in giving back to our community, and I think we all need to be more transparent with each other and to help each other. So that's my advice.
I would add that I think it's really important that if you do have an incident, whether it's personal or professional, that you not be afraid to talk about it, that you share it. One of the difficulties that we have, we're always trying to get customers that have had something happen to share best practices of why it happened and how they got recovered. And no one wants to talk about it because it's embarrassing. But we all learn from that. So I would say, agree with everything that's been said, but I would say don't be afraid to share because it's a learning experience that makes everybody stronger.
Yeah, I love that. For those of you who know me in the room, one of my shout to the rooftops is be vulnerable. And be vulnerable to say, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know how this incident happened. I don't know how I was defrauded. I don't understand. And I think that, going back, if we look forward into cybersecurity leaders who are leaving, I think that there is a stigma around security leaders that we're trying to break, right? This is why we're all here. We're trying to break to say it's not up to the CISO to be the only person standing on any type of security incident, whether it's cyber, whether it's others. It's not up to just the CISO. And so being vulnerable in your organization and being okay with yourself to say, I don't know all the answers. Yes, I have a title of, CEO or VP or director or senior manager, whatever that title brings, it's okay to say I don't know and I need to learn more. Because it's through those learning more that we can start, number one, protecting our organizations, our crown jewels. Number two, we can start alleviating some of the stress off of ourselves or for us thinking that we have to know all the answers. We don't have to know all the answers. And so I would say that, for me, again, I shout it to the rooftop of being vulnerable. It's okay to say that you don't know, and enlisting people within your network to get those answers and then share the answers out. I love tabletop exercises. They bring on stress that I didn't know that I had. And so I love going through incidences and also doing, post-mortems on incidences. However small they are, there are learnings for all of us in every single small incident on how we can do better. And so I would say what are the golden nuggets from Anne-Marie Kelly? I would say that is, those are the most important, I think.
My advice is have a consulting partner on speed dial. Jokes aside.
I wonder why.
Jokes aside, it's more about asking for help, right? Asking for help when you need it. It does get very lonely, especially when you're dealing with such a sensitive portfolio. So asking for help, whether it's technical, whether it's advisory, whether it's, anything related to mental health, you have to raise your hand because the onus lies on you. So ask for help when you need it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pam, Abby, Anne-Marie, and Nisha. Can we give our panel a round of applause? I realize that we are standing between you and your first course, so we are going to hand it back over to the illustrious Kat. Good. And we are going to, absolutely, we can go this way because there is a podium there.
Thank you to that panel. That was fantastic. We are stronger together. In the spirit of detect and mitigate, we are detecting people are hungry, so we are going to mitigate by serving the first course.